In the vast emptiness of space where civilizations rise and fall like distant stars, the most powerful discoveries often come from the most unexpected places. What happens when a piece of advanced alien technology, abandoned for centuries and deemed worthless by the galaxy's greatest minds, suddenly awakens at the touch of something as simple as a child's forgotten toy? Sometimes the universe's greatest mysteries aren't solved by brilliant scientists or powerful computers, but by the innocent curiosity of humanity and the simple objects we leave behind. The derelict station hung in the void like a metal corpse, its hull scarred by centuries of micrometeorite impacts and solar radiation. Captain Sarah Chen pressed her face against a viewport of the salvage vessel Lucky Strike. The station was easily 10 times larger than anything humans had ever built, its organic curves and impossible angles marking it as unmistakably alien. "Sensors are picking up minimal power signatures," reported her engineer Marcus Webb from his station behind her. "Whatever happened here, it happened a long time ago." Sarah nodded, her breath fogging the reinforced glass. 3 months they'd been following the distress beacon. 3 months of jumping from system to system, burning through their fuel reserves and eating into their profit margins. The beacon had been weak, intermittent broadcasting on frequencies that predated human spaceflight by millennia. Most salvage crews would have ignored it, written it off as another ghost signal from some long-dead civilization. But Sarah wasn't most salvage crews. "Any signs of atmosphere?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. The station's docking bays gaped open to space, like broken teeth, their atmospheric barriers long since failed. "Negative, Captain. We'll need full EVA gear." Marcus paused, consulting his readings. "But the good news is the hull integrity looks solid. Whatever they built this thing from, it's held up better than our own ships would have." Sarah's third crew member, Dr. Elena Vasquez, looked up from her portable lab station. As the team's xenoarchaeologist, Elena had seen more dead alien ruins than most people had seen alien movies. Her expression was troubled as she studied the preliminary scans. "Captain, I need to show you something," Elena said, her voice tight with excitement and concern. "The architectural patterns, the material composition, the power distribution networks. This isn't just any derelict station." She transferred her analysis to the main display, and Sarah felt her pulse quicken. The station's design matched theoretical reconstructions she'd seen in classified reports, reconstructions based on fragments and rumors and half-remembered legends.
"This is Keeper technology," Elena whispered.
Real, genuine Keeper tech. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Every spacer knew the stories of the Keepers, the mysterious race that had supposedly seeded FTL technology throughout the galaxy millions of years ago before vanishing without a trace. Most dismissed the stories as myth, the kind of tales that grew in the telling over long hyperspace jumps. But here was the proof, hanging in space before them like a gift from the gods. "Keeper or not," Sarah said finally, "it's been dead for centuries, and dead things can't hurt us." She turned to Marcus. "Prep the shuttle. We're going aboard." An hour later, Sarah floated through the station's cavernous central hub, her helmet lights cutting through darkness that had persisted since before human civilization began. The artificial gravity was gone, but the station's architecture suggested it had once been a place of great beauty. Crystalline structures rose from the deck in organic spirals, their surfaces dulled by age but still displaying intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow in the light. "Remarkable preservation," Elena's voice crackled through the comm. She was 20 meters away, running her scanner over what looked like a control console. The atmospheric systems failed, but the lack of oxygen actually helped prevent decay. It's like a time capsule. Marcus was deeper in the station, following power conduits toward what their sensors suggested was the main reactor chamber.
"Captain, you need to see this. The power signatures are getting stronger the deeper I go."
With trust, Eddie, Sarah pushed off from a bulkhead, gliding through the weightless environment with practiced ease. The station was vast, its corridors stretching away into darkness, like the arteries of some slumbering giant. Emergency lighting flickered sporadically, powered by backup systems that had somehow managed to keep functioning across the millennia. "Marcus, report," she called as she navigated toward his position. "I'm at what looks like the central power core," came his reply, thick with awe. "Captain, this thing is still partially active. Not much, maybe 2 or 3% of full power, but it's definitely running." Sarah found him floating before a massive spherical chamber, its walls lined with conduits and monitoring systems that pulsed with faint bioluminescent light. At the center of the chamber, suspended in a web of crystalline supports, hung a device that defied easy description. It was roughly cylindrical, about the size of a shuttle, but its surface seemed to fold in on itself in ways that hurt to look at directly. "It's an FTL drive," Elena breathed, arriving behind them. "But not like anything in our databases." The power signatures are off the charts, even at this low level of activity. Sarah stared at the device, her mind racing. A functional Keeper FTL drive would be worth more than her ship, more than her entire salvage operation, more than anything she could imagine. It would revolutionize space travel, open up new regions of the galaxy, make her crew wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. "Can we extract it?" she asked. Marcus shook his head. "Not without understanding how it interfaces with the station's systems. Try to remove it improperly, and we could trigger a cascade failure. At best, we'd damage the drive. At worst," he gestured at the massive power readings on his scanner. "How long to figure out the interface protocols? These systems are like nothing I've ever seen." Sarah cursed silently. They didn't have weeks. Their supplies were limited, and other salvage crews would eventually follow the same beacon that had led them here. With Trust Teddy, she needed a solution, and she needed it fast. "There has to be some kind of activation sequence," she mused, floating closer to the drive chamber. Some way the original operators controlled it. Elena was scanning the chamber walls, her equipment picking up faint energy patterns in the crystalline structures. The control systems appear to be distributed throughout the chamber. Not physical interfaces like we're used to, but some kind of resonance-based activation. Resonance? The crystals respond to specific frequencies, specific patterns of energy input. It's like a musical instrument, but for controlling space-time itself. Sarah's comlink chimed with an incoming message from their ship. Her pilot, Jackson Torres, sounded tense. "Captain, we've got company. 3 ships just dropped out of FTL at the system edge. Configuration suggests Meridian Corporation." Sarah's blood ran cold. Meridian was one of the biggest salvage operations in the sector, with resources and firepower that dwarfed her small crew. If they were here, it meant someone had leaked information about the beacon. Time to intercept? 6 hours, maybe 7 if they're being cautious. 6 hours to unlock the secrets of a technology that had eluded galactic civilization for millions of years. Sarah looked around the chamber, noting the alien symbols carved into the walls, the complex patterns of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the drive itself. "Elena, can you translate any of these markings?" The xenoarchaeologist was already working, her portable computer running analysis programs on the alien script. Some of it matches patterns from other Keeper sites, but this is much more complete. "Give me a few minutes." As Elena worked, Sarah found herself drawn to a smaller chamber adjacent to the main drive room. Her helmet lights revealed what looked like living quarters, though designed for beings quite different from humans. The furniture, if it could be called that, was grown rather than built, organic curves that seemed to flow from floor to ceiling. But it was what she found in what might have been a storage alcove that made her stop short. Mixed in with alien artifacts were objects that were unmistakably human. A child's stuffed toy, its fabric faded but intact in the airless environment. A primitive electronic device that looked like an ancient music player. A collection of small metal objects that took her a moment to recognize as toy cars. "Elena, Marcus, you need to see this." They joined her in the smaller chamber, their lights playing over the impossible collection of human artifacts. "How is this possible?" Marcus whispered. "This station has been dead for millennia. Elena was scanning the objects, her face pale behind her helmet visor. The toy, it's showing trace radiation signatures consistent with early 21st century Earth manufacturing. But that's impossible. Humans didn't even have FTL technology until... She trailed off, staring at her readings. Until when, Elena? Until 2157. But according to these scans, some of these objects are much older than that. This toy, for instance, shows manufacturing patterns from around 2023. Sarah picked up the stuffed toy, a small bear with button eyes and a faded red ribbon around its neck. As her gloved fingers touched the fabric, she felt a strange tingling sensation, like static electricity, but somehow warmer. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the chamber, the crystalline structures began to glow more brightly. The power readings on Marcus's scanner spiked, and the FTL drive itself seemed to hum with increasing energy. Status displays that had been dark for centuries flickered to life, showing readouts in the flowing script of the keepers. "Sarah, put it down!" Marcus shouted. "The power levels are going critical!" But Sarah found she couldn't let go of the toy. It seemed to be resonating with something in the station, creating a feedback loop that was awakening systems that had slumbered for eons. Through her helmet radio, she could hear a sound that shouldn't have been possible in the vacuum of space, a deep, melodic tone that seemed to come from the station itself. The FTL drive rotated slowly in its crystalline cradle, its impossible geometry shifting and realigning. Displays around the chamber showed star maps, navigation data, power distribution networks coming online one by one. The station was waking up, responding to the presence of the human artifacts in ways that defied all logic. "It's not just activation," Elena breathed, staring at her readings in disbelief. "The station is learning, adapting. It's interfacing with the quantum signatures in these human objects and using them to recalibrate its systems." Sarah finally managed to set the toy down, but the activation sequence continued. The station was fully awake now, its corridors filling with soft, bioluminescent light, its atmosphere processors humming to life after millennia of silence. "Captain," Jackson's voice crackled over the comm, tight with urgency. "Something's happening out here. The station is powering up, and it's doing something to our sensors. It's like it's scanning us." Sarah looked around the chamber, noting how the alien displays seemed to be focusing on them, analyzing them, learning from their presence. Whatever the keepers had built here, it wasn't just a space station, or even just an FTL drive. It was something far more sophisticated, something that could adapt and evolve based on who encountered it. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The human artifacts weren't randomly placed here. They were left deliberately, by humans who had somehow encountered this station long before official first contact with alien technology. But how was that possible? And why would they leave children's toys in a place like this? "Elena," she said slowly, "you mentioned the toy show manufacturing dates from 2023. What happened on Earth around that time?" "Let me check the historical databases. 2023 was during the Resource Wars, just before the formation of the United Earth Government. There were several unexplained disappearances during that period. Ships and aircraft that simply vanished without a trace. Disappeared where? Various locations, but there was a cluster of incidents in the North Atlantic. Ships reported strange lights, gravitational anomalies, temporal distortions." Elena paused, her expression changing. "Sarah, I think some of those missing ships didn't disappear. I think they were taken." The implications were staggering. If Elena was right, then humans had been encountering Keeper technology decades before official first contact. But why would the Keepers take human ships? And why would they leave the crew's personal belongings here, on a station light years from Earth? "Captain," Marcus interrupted, "we've got a bigger problem. Meridian ships have changed course. They're moving fast, and their energy signatures suggest they're armed." Sarah made a decision that would haunt her dreams for years to come. "Jackson, prep for emergency departure. Elena, download everything you can from these systems. Marcus, can this FTL drive be activated remotely?" "I think so. Marcus replied, studying the alien displays. The interface seems to be responding to the presence of the human artifacts. If we can figure out the activation sequence, do it. We're taking this station with us. Elena looked up from her computer. Sarah, we don't understand this technology. Attempting to jump with an alien FTL drive could be catastrophic. More catastrophic than letting Meridian get their hands on it? Before Elena could answer, the station shuddered around them. Through the transparent aluminum of the chamber walls, Sarah could see space itself beginning to distort, reality bending and folding as the ancient FTL drive prepared to activate. "All hands, brace for jump," she called into her comm. This is going to be interesting. The last thing she saw before the universe folded in on itself was the small stuffed bear, still glowing faintly with an inner light, as if it somehow understood what was about to happen. Then space twisted, time seemed to stop, and the station vanished from its orbit around the dying star, carrying its human crew into the unknown depths of the galaxy. Behind them, 3 Meridian Corporation ships arrived to find nothing but empty space and the fading echoes of an impossible energy signature. The race to unlock the secrets of Keeper technology had begun, but the humans had an advantage their competitors couldn't imagine. They had been part of the mystery from the very beginning. In the depths of space, an ancient station carried its new human crew toward a destiny that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. And in a small chamber filled with the detritus of a lost civilization, a child's toy continued to glow with the light of awakened stars, a bridge between 2 species separated by millions of years, and the vast emptiness of space. The Keepers had been waiting. They had been preparing. And now finally, their chosen inheritors had arrived to claim their birthright among the stars. The sensation of FTL travel through alien technology was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. Where human jump drives created a brief moment of disorientation followed by the familiar snap back to normal space, the Keeper drive seemed to fold reality around them like origami made of starlight. Time stretched and compressed simultaneously. And for a terrifying moment, Sarah felt as if she could perceive every star in the galaxy at once. When the universe finally settled back into its proper shape, they found themselves in a system that definitely wasn't on any human star charts. "Jackson, report," Sarah called, steadying herself against a bulkhead as artificial gravity reasserted itself throughout the station. "Captain, we're Teddy, somewhere else entirely," came the shaken reply from their pilot. 3 suns, all different colors, orbital mechanics that don't make sense. And Captain, our chronometers are showing we've been in transit for 17 minutes, but the quantum resonance patterns suggest we've traveled at least 1,500 light years. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's recycled atmosphere. 1,500 light years in 17 minutes meant they were now further from human space than any ship had ever traveled. The fastest human vessels could cover maybe 50 light years in a standard jump, and that took hours of preparation and massive energy expenditure. "Any signs of pursuit?" she asked. "Negative. If Meridian followed us, they're not showing up on sensors." Elena was still hunched over her portable lab station, trying to make sense of the data streams flowing from the awakened alien systems. "Sarah, you need to see this," she said, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "The station isn't just using our presence to activate its systems, it's learning from us. Adapting. The interface protocols are shifting to accommodate human neural patterns." Marcus floated over to join them, his engineering scanner showing readings that defied conventional physics. "The power systems are operating at about 30% now and climbing. But here's the weird part. The energy isn't coming from any reactor I can identify. It's like the drive is pulling power directly from space itself." Sarah studied the displays surrounding them, noting how the alien text was gradually being replaced by symbols that seemed more familiar, more intuitive. "It's not just learning our language," she realized. "It's learning how we think." A new voice suddenly echoed through the chamber, speaking in perfect, unaccented English. "Learning is the foundation of growth. Growth is the foundation of purpose. Welcome, inheritors. The three humans spun around, searching for the source of the voice, but the chamber appeared empty except for themselves and the alien technology. "Who's there?" Sarah called out. "Show yourself!" "I am here," the voice replied calmly. "I am the station. I am the drive. I am the bridge between what was and what will be. You may call me Keeper if you require a designation." Elena's scanner was going wild, detecting massive fluctuations in the station's quantum field. "It's not a recording," she whispered. "It's a genuine artificial intelligence integrated into the station's core systems." "That's impossible," Marcus protested. "True AI requires quantum processing matrices that we haven't even figured out how to build yet. Your species has always displayed charming limitations in imagination. You assume that because you cannot yet create something, it cannot exist. Yet here you stand, surrounded by proof of technologies that exceed your current understanding by several orders of magnitude. You're claiming to be one of the Keepers? The race that supposedly seeded FTL technology throughout the galaxy? Supposedly? The chamber's lighting shifted slightly, creating patterns that seemed to pulse with gentle humor. Your skepticism is noted and appreciated. Doubt is a survival mechanism. But consider your current circumstances. You are 1,500 light-years from your home space, aboard a station that has been waiting for your species for over 67,000 years. The number hit Sarah like a physical blow. Waiting for us? How could you have been waiting for us? Humans have only had spaceflight for a few centuries. Time is more fluid than your species currently understands. Effect can precede cause when viewed from the proper dimensional perspective. We knew you would come because we had already seen you arrive. Elena was frantically taking notes on her portable computer. This is incredible. We're talking to a genuine representative of the most advanced civilization in galactic history. The scientific implications alone are secondary to your immediate survival needs, Keeper interrupted gently. You are being pursued by members of your own species who lack the genetic resonance necessary to properly interface with our technology. Their attempts to access our systems will prove catastrophic for them and potentially damaging to the greater galactic community. Teddy crusted generously and fought through his tongue. Marcus looked up from his scanner. Genetic resonance? What does that mean? Your species underwent a significant evolutionary event approximately 67,000 years ago. A small percentage of your population carries genetic markers that allow for direct interface with Keeper technology. You three and approximately 12% of your species possess this capability. Sarah's mind raced back to the human artifacts they'd found in the storage chamber. The toys, the personal belongings, they belong to people like us? People with this genetic resonance? Correct. Your predecessors were brought here during what you referred to as temporal anomalies in your early 21st century. They served as the initial interface pattern, teaching our systems to recognize and respond to human consciousness. Their sacrifice made your current success possible. The implications were staggering. Sarah thought about the families of the missing ships and aircraft, the children who had lost parents, the mystery that had never been solved. What happened to them? They lived full lives aboard our vessels, exploring the galaxy. Their genetic material was preserved and their knowledge integrated into our collective understanding. In a very real sense, they are still with us. Elena looked up from her computer. The genetic markers you mentioned, can you identify them specifically? Observing, the chamber hummed with energy as invisible scanners played over the three humans. Dr. Vasquez, your markers are particularly strong, concentrated in the regions that govern pattern recognition and spatial reasoning. Mr. Watterson, Webb, your compatibility lies in the areas relating to energy manipulation and system integration. Captain Chen, your resonance patterns are the most unusual I have encountered in several millennia. Unusual how? You possess markers that should not exist in your current evolutionary timeline. They suggest exposure to temporal distortion fields during your developmental years. Most intriguing. Sarah frowned, thinking back to her childhood. There had been that incident when she was 12, the unexplained lights over her family's farm. The 3 days that everyone insisted had only been 3 hours. She'd never talked about it, never even been sure it had really happened. The point is, Keeper continued, your species has reached a critical juncture. The galaxy contains numerous civilizations that view humans as primitives suitable only for exploitation or elimination. The technology you now have access to can change that balance dramatically. By making us as advanced as you were? Marcus asked. By making you something entirely new. Our civilization reached its peak and then stagnated. We became so advanced that we lost the capacity for growth, for surprise, for the kind of innovative thinking that drives true progress. Your species, however, possesses something we never had, the ability to find unexpected solutions to impossible problems. Sarah thought about the stuffed toy that had somehow activated an alien FTL drive. You mean like using children's toys to interface with your technology? A keeper would have spent centuries analyzing the quantum resonance patterns required for activation. You simply touched an object that held emotional significance for a human child, and the system recognized the underlying pattern of consciousness and responded accordingly. The conversation was interrupted by Jackson's voice over the comm system. Captain, we've got movement on the long-range sensors. Multiple ships closing on our position. Configuration doesn't match anything in our databases. Sarah felt her stomach clench. Meridian found us? Negative, Captain. These ships are bigger. Much bigger, and they're not broadcasting any identification signals. Keeper's voice took on a tone of concern. The hegemony. They monitor this region for Keeper technology activation. Your arrival has undoubtedly triggered their automated detection systems. Who's the hegemony? A coalition of species that have spent the last 1,000,000 years systematically hunting down and destroying any trace of Keeper technology they can find. They view our legacy as a threat to their established order. Elena looked up from her readings. How big a threat are we talking about? A single hegemony dreadnought carries sufficient firepower to sterilize a planet. The fleet approaching your position consists of 7 such vessels. Sarah's military training kicked in, her mind automatically shifting into tactical analysis mode. Defensive capabilities of this station? Considerable, but unused for several 100,000 years. Activation will require full integration with the station's consciousness matrix. What does that mean? One of you will need to merge temporarily with the station's primary AI systems. The process is intense. Marcus was studying his scanner readings with growing alarm. Captain, whatever we're going to do, we need to decide fast. Those ships will be in firing range in less than 10 minutes. Sarah looked at her crew. These people who had followed her across the galaxy on what had started as a routine salvage operation. Elena, brilliant and fearless, her mind already racing through the possibilities. Marcus, steady and reliable, ready to make any sacrifice necessary to keep his friends alive. And somewhere above them, Jackson probably running through emergency escape scenarios and finding them all wanting. What are the risks of this consciousness merge? She asked. Permanent psychological integration is possible. You might retain aspects of Keeper awareness even after disconnection. Alternatively, the human psyche might not be compatible with our thought patterns, resulting in complete mental dissolution. In other words, I might go crazy or stop being human. Those are crude but essentially accurate assessments. Sarah made her decision with the kind of instantaneous certainty that had made her a successful salvage captain. Do it. We don't understand the technology well enough. We don't have time to understand it, Sarah cut her off. Those ships are going to blast us into atoms unless we can defend ourselves. The captain's analysis is correct. However, I should note that the integration process works best with a subject who possesses strong emotional connections to maintain psychological stability. The human artifacts in the storage chamber suggest that personal attachments serve as anchors during the merging process. Sarah thought of the stuffed bear, still glowing faintly in the adjacent chamber. Without a word, she pushed off toward the storage alcove. "Sarah, what are you doing?" Marcus called after her. "Getting an anchor," she replied, gently lifting the small toy. As her fingers touched the worn fabric, she felt the same warm, tingling sensation as before, but stronger now, more focused. "This belonged to someone," she said, studying the bear's button eyes. "A child who was taken from Earth, brought here, probably terrified and alone. Her name was Amy," Keeper said softly. "Age 7 when she was retrieved from a commercial aircraft that experienced temporal displacement over the North Atlantic in 2023. She named the bear Mr. Buttons." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. A 7-year-old girl, torn from her family, carrying only a stuffed toy into the unknown. What happened to her? She lived to be 93 standard years, exploring 17 different star systems, cataloging 42 previously unknown species, and serving as the primary interface between human consciousness and Keeper technology for over 8 decades. Her pattern of thought became the foundation template for human Keeper integration protocols. "She was brave," Sarah whispered.
Extraordinarily so. As are you, Captain Chen.
Sarah squared her shoulders and returned to the main chamber. "Let's do this." "Place your hand on the central interface node," Keeper instructed, indicating a crystalline formation near the FTL drive. "Maintain physical contact with the emotional anchor. Focus on your identity, your memories, your connections to your species." Sarah approached the interface node, the stuffed bear clutched in her left hand. Through the transparent walls of the chamber, she could see the approaching hegemony fleet, 7 massive ships that looked like metallic predators closing in on their prey. "Captain," Jackson's voice crackled over the comm, "they're powering weapons. We've got maybe 3 minutes." Sarah placed her right hand on the crystalline interface. The universe exploded into consciousness. Suddenly, she was the station, feeling the cosmic wind against her hull, sensing the quantum fluctuations of nearby stars, aware of every system, every circuit. But she was also still Sarah Chen, salvage captain, human being, connected to her crew and her species by bonds that stretched across light years. Through the station's sensors, she could perceive the hegemony ships with impossible clarity. 7 dreadnoughts, each crewed by a different species, all united in their hatred of Keeper technology and their determination to see it destroyed. They had been hunting relics like this station for millennia, viewing them as dangerous disruptions to galactic stability. But they had never encountered a relic that could think, that could adapt, that could fight back, with the innovative desperation of human consciousness merged with Keeper technology. Sarah/Keeper felt the weapon systems coming online, technologies that could manipulate space-time itself, bend reality to their will, turn the very structure of the universe into a weapon. But more than that, she felt the crew of the station, her crew, trusting her to keep them alive. The first hegemony dreadnought fired, a beam of coherent energy that could have cut through a moon. Sarah/Keeper twisted local space-time, redirecting the blast harmlessly into the system's primary star, which flared briefly brighter. The second and third ships fired simultaneously, coordinating their attack patterns with military precision. Sarah/Keeper responded by creating a localized gravity well, pulling the enemy shots into a tight spiral that dissipated their energy harmlessly. But it was the fourth ship's attack that showed her something remarkable. As the massive particle beam approached, Sarah found herself thinking not like a Keeper, with their logical, systematic approach to problem-solving, but like a human, with their talent for improvisation and creative thinking. Instead of deflecting or absorbing the attack, she grabbed it, used the station's gravity manipulators to twist it into a pretzel knot of folded space, and fired it back at the attacking ship with compound interest. The hegemony dreadnought's shields failed catastrophically, and the massive vessel began to drift, its hull glowing cherry red from feedback overload. Through the station's communication arrays, she heard the enemy fleet's chatter, confusion, and growing fear as they realized they were facing something unprecedented, a Keeper installation with human creativity and adaptability. The remaining 6 ships began to spread out, trying to surround the station and attack from multiple vectors. But Sarah/Keeper was no longer thinking defensively. She was thinking like a salvage captain who had spent her career turning impossible situations to her advantage. She reached out with the station's tractor beams, not to push the enemy ships away, but to grab pieces of debris from the damaged dreadnought and accelerate them to significant fractions of light speed. Suddenly, the hegemony fleet found itself under bombardment from their own ship's hull plating, moving fast enough to punch through military-grade shielding. 2 more dreadnoughts took critical damage before the fleet commander apparently decided that discretion was the better part of valor. The remaining ships began to retreat, jumping to FTL as quickly as their drives could cycle. As the last enemy vessel vanished, Sarah felt the connection to the station's systems beginning to fade. She was becoming herself again, just Sarah Chen, human being, standing in an alien chamber with her hand on a crystalline interface and a child's toy clutched to her chest. "Status report," she called weakly, her voice hoarse from the strain of consciousness integration. "We're alive," Marcus reported, his voice full of wonder, "and we just defeated a hegemony battle fleet with tactics they've probably never seen before. More importantly," Elena added, "we've proven that humans can successfully interface with Keeper technology. This changes everything." Keeper's voice echoed through the chamber, carrying a tone of satisfaction and something that might have been pride. "Your species never ceases to amaze me, Captain Chen. In all my millennia of existence, I have never seen anyone use a tractor beam to turn debris into a kinetic bombardment system." Sarah managed a weak smile. "We're a resourceful bunch." "Indeed you are. And now, I believe, you are ready to learn what your species is truly capable of when properly equipped." As Sarah finally removed her hand from the interface node, she felt a lingering connection to the station's vast intelligence, a sense of possibility that stretched to the farthest corners of the galaxy. They had won their first battle, but she suspected it was only the beginning of a much larger war. And somewhere in the depths of space, the hegemony fleet was already transmitting reports of a new threat. A merger of human adaptability and Keeper technology that could upset the balance of power that had existed for millions of years. The galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place. The aftermath of the battle left Sarah feeling drained, but oddly energized, as if some residual connection to the station's vast intelligence continued to flow through her consciousness. As she sat in what Keeper had configured as a human-compatible rest area, she found herself aware of system functions and energy patterns that should have been completely beyond her understanding. "The integration process has left permanent changes in your neural pathways," Keeper explained, its voice now coming from speakers that had somehow reconfigured themselves to produce more natural-sounding human speech. "Nothing harmful, but you will find yourself able to interface with our technology more intuitively than before." Elena looked up from her analysis of the battle data. "Sarah, your biometric readings during the merge were off the charts. Brain activity in regions we didn't even know could be activated. Quantum resonance patterns that match theoretical models for enhanced consciousness. You were literally thinking with the processing power of an entire artificial intelligence." "How do you feel?" Marcus asked, concern evident in his voice. Sarah considered the question carefully. "Teddy." She felt expanded, somehow, as if her perception of the universe had been fundamentally altered. Different, but still me, if that makes sense. Like I've been given a new set of senses, but I'm still the same person experiencing them. "The human psyche demonstrates remarkable adaptability," Keeper observed. "Far greater than we initially calculated. Your species may be the first we have encountered that can merge with our technology without losing their essential identity." Jackson's voice crackled over the intercom from the bridge area he'd established in what used to be a Keeper observation deck. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from multiple sources. Some of them are in languages our computers can't identify." "Put them through," Sarah replied. The chamber filled with a cacophony of alien voices, speaking in languages that ranged from musical tones to harsh mechanical sounds. But as Sarah listened, she found that the lingering connection to Keeper's systems was automatically translating the communications. Unprecedented display of technological capability. Humans have somehow accessed Keeper weapon systems. Immediate threat to established trade routes. Alliance implications require careful consideration. Sarah held up a hand for silence, and the translation stopped. They're talking about us. Word of your victory over the hegemony fleet has spread quickly, Keeper confirmed. The galactic communication networks are quite efficient when it comes to spreading news of significant events. Alina was monitoring the transmissions on her equipment. I'm detecting at least 12 different species represented in these communications. Some are expressing concern, others, curiosity. And some, Marcus added grimly, sound distinctly hostile. As if to emphasize his point, one transmission came through in heavily accented but understandable English. Human vessel, you are in violation of Galactic Accord Section 7, Subsection 12. Surrender immediately or face the consequences of your illegal acquisition of prohibited technologies. Sarah felt a surge of irritation that seemed to resonate through the station's systems. Several displays flickered, and she could swear she felt the massive structure's weapon systems beginning to power up in response to her emotional state. Who was that? She asked, consciously trying to calm herself. The Altarian Trade Confederation, Keeper replied, a consortium of species that have maintained strict control over advanced technology distribution for the past 50,000 years. They view the emergence of human-keeper hybrid capabilities as a direct threat to their monopoly. Let me guess, Sarah said dryly. They're the ones who write the Galactic Accords that supposedly govern what technologies different species are allowed to have. Correct. The Accords were established after the last Keeper War, designed to prevent any single species from achieving the level of technological advancement that might threaten the existing power structure. Captain, the station's defensive systems are showing massive power buildups. It's like the whole structure is preparing for a major engagement. Sarah realized that her emotional responses were still partially linked to the station's systems. Her anger at the Altarian ultimatum was being interpreted as a tactical threat assessment, causing Keeper's weapons to begin charging for battle. How do I control this connection? She asked. Practice, Keeper replied simply. The integration process has made you a bridge between human consciousness and our technology. Learning to modulate that connection will take time. Before Sarah could respond, Jackson's voice crackled over the intercom again, tight with tension. Captain, we've got incoming. Lots of incoming. I count at least 20 ships dropping out of FTL at various points around the system. Through the station's enhanced sensor arrays, Sarah could perceive the approaching vessels with startling clarity. They were a mix of different species and configurations, but all heavily armed and moving with obvious hostile intent. The Altarian Enforcement Fleet. Keeper identified. They respond to technological violations with overwhelming force. Their standard operating procedure is to destroy the offending technology and any beings who have been exposed to it. Elena looked up from her computer. They're planning to kill us just for touching your technology? The Accords are quite specific on this point. Unauthorized access to Keeper artifacts is punishable by immediate termination of the offending parties and destruction of all related materials. Sarah felt her anger flare again, and this time she let it flow through the connection to the station systems. If the galaxy's established powers wanted to treat humans as disposable primitives, she was more than happy to show them exactly how wrong they were. Keeper, full system activation. I want everything this station has available for combat operations. Sarah, Marcus warned, we're talking about engaging an entire fleet. Even with this technology, the odds don't matter. Sarah cut him off. These bastards just declared their intention to commit genocide against us for the crime of being too primitive to deserve advanced technology. I say we show them what human primitives are capable of when properly motivated. The station began to transform around them, systems coming online that had been dormant for millennia. The FTL drive at the heart of the structure began to rotate faster, building up energies that made the surrounding space itself ripple and distort. Weapon arrays emerged from hidden compartments throughout the hall. Tracking systems locked onto the approaching fleet, and defensive screens shimmered into existence around the station's perimeter. But it was what happened next that truly demonstrated the power of human Keeper hybrid technology. Instead of waiting for the enemy fleet to reach optimal firing range, Sarah reached out through the station's systems and began to manipulate the local space-time continuum. She folded the distance between the station and the lead Altarian vessel, bringing them into close proximity without actually moving either ship. The Altarian captain's voice crackled over the communication channels, speaking in his own language but automatically translated by Keeper's systems. "Impossible! They cannot have mastered spatial folding techniques." Sarah smiled grimly. "Keeper, can you translate my response into whatever language they use?" "Certainly, Captain. Tell them this. You want to see impossible? You haven't seen anything yet." What followed was less a battle than a demonstration of the creative potential unleashed when human ingenuity merged with Keeper technology. Sarah didn't just fight the Altarian fleet, she played with them, showing them possibilities they had never imagined. She created gravity wells that pulled ships out of formation, then released them in spiraling patterns that left their crews disoriented and nauseous. She folded space around individual vessels, trapping them in pocket dimensions where they could fire their weapons harmlessly at their own reflections. She used the station's tractor beams to gently but firmly relocate ships to completely different parts of the star system, leaving their crews to wonder how they had suddenly found themselves orbiting a different planet. The psychological impact was devastating. The Altarian enforcement fleet had been designed to intimidate primitive species through overwhelming displays of firepower. They had never encountered an opponent who treated their massive dreadnoughts like toys to be rearranged at will. "This is impossible," came a transmission from the fleet commander, his voice shaking with a mixture of fear and disbelief. No single installation should possess this level of technological capability. Sarah's response was to reach out through the station's systems and gently turn the flagship upside down, leaving the crew floating in their command center as their artificial gravity struggled to compensate. "The word you're looking for," she said sweetly, "is surrender." The Altarian fleet's withdrawal was swift and undignified, ships fleeing to FTL as quickly as their drives could cycle. But Sarah knew this was only the beginning. Word would spread throughout the galaxy about the humans who had somehow mastered Keeper technology, and every major power would want to either control that capability. "Well," Elena said into the sudden silence that followed the enemy retreat, "I think we can safely say that humanity's relationship with the rest of the galaxy just became significantly more complicated. Your species continues to exceed all projections for adaptability and creative problem-solving. The integration of human consciousness with our technology has produced capabilities that neither our race nor yours could have achieved independently." Marcus was studying the power consumption readings from the battle. The energy expenditure for those spatial manipulation techniques should have drained the station's reserves completely, but we're still showing 95% power levels. The FTL drive draws energy directly from quantum vacuum fluctuations, Keeper explained. Essentially unlimited power as long as the extraction systems remain stable. They had just demonstrated to the galaxy that humans could access effectively unlimited energy and manipulate space-time itself. Every major civilization would now view humanity as either a potential ally to be courted. "Keeper," she said, "how many other installations like this one exist?" 17 remain functional throughout the galaxy. However, all required the same genetic compatibility markers that allowed you to interface with our systems. 17. Sarah did quick mental calculations. If each installation was as powerful as this one, and if even a small percentage of humans could learn to interface with them, we could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. Change it, yes, but to what end? Power without wisdom leads to the same stagnation that ultimately destroyed our civilization. Elena looked up from her analysis of the sensor data. Speaking of which, we're receiving a new transmission. This one's different from the others. The communication that came through was unlike the harsh ultimatums or fearful chatter they had received from other species. The voice was measured, thoughtful, speaking in a language that Keeper's systems identified as belonging to the Zephyrian Republic, one of the few genuinely democratic civilizations in the galaxy. Human vessel, this is Ambassador Kethmar of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps. We have observed your recent encounters with both Hegemony and Altarian forces. We would very much like to open formal diplomatic relations with your species. We believe there may be opportunities for mutually beneficial cooperation. With trust Teddy, Sarah considered the offer carefully. The Zephyrians were known throughout human space as one of the few alien civilizations that actually seemed to practice the democratic values they claimed to espouse. If humanity was going to need allies in the coming conflicts, Keeper, what can you tell me about the Zephyrians? A fascinating species. They achieved spaceflight through cooperative effort rather than competition, and their society is built around the concept of collective problem-solving. They have been quietly building a coalition of smaller civilizations that oppose the hegemonic control exercised by powers like the Altarian Confederation. In other words, they're potential allies against the species that want to keep everyone else primitive and controllable. That would be an accurate assessment. Sarah made her decision. Open a channel to the Zephyrian ship. When the connection was established, she could see the alien ambassador on the main display. Kethmar was tall and slender, with iridescent skin that shifted colors as he spoke, and large, intelligent eyes that seemed to sparkle with genuine curiosity rather than fear or greed. Ambassador, Sarah began, I'm Captain Sarah Chen, representing, well, I suppose I'm representing humanity's interests in this sector. I'm interested in hearing what kind of cooperation you have in mind. Kethmar's skin shifted to warmer tones, which Keeper's systems identified as a sign of pleasure and excitement. Captain Chen, your species has just accomplished something that the galaxy's political scientists have declared impossible for millennia. You have successfully integrated with Keeper technology while maintaining your individual consciousness and cultural identity. And that's significant because it suggests that the current galactic order, based on the premise that advanced technology must be strictly controlled to prevent another Keeper war, may be fundamentally flawed. Perhaps the problem was not the technology itself, but the way it was implemented by a single, homogeneous civilization. Elena leaned forward, her xenoarchaeologist training making her particularly interested in this line of thinking. You're suggesting that diversity of thought and approach might be the key to safely utilizing advanced technology? The Keepers, for all their advancement, were essentially a single unified consciousness. They lacked the variety of perspectives that comes from multiple species, multiple ways of thinking about problems. Your species, integrated with Keeper technology but retaining human creativity and adaptability, might represent the synthesis that the galaxy has been waiting for. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. They were talking about potentially reshaping galactic civilization, about challenging power structures that had existed for millions of years.
What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador?
An alliance. The Zephyrian Republic and its associated civilizations provide political and economic support, while humanity provides the technological breakthrough that could finally break the stranglehold that the major powers have maintained over galactic development. Marcus looked skeptical. That sounds like a lot of responsibility to place on one ship and 3 humans who are still trying to figure out how their own technology works. You are correct to be cautious, Mr. Sister. Webb. But consider the alternative. The major powers will not simply ignore what has happened here. They will either attempt to control you or destroy you. Having allies who share your vision of a more equitable galactic community seems preferable to facing those challenges alone. Sarah looked around at her crew, these people who had followed her on what was supposed to be a routine salvage operation and instead found themselves at the center of a potential galactic revolution. I need to discuss this with my team, she said finally, and with the rest of humanity. This isn't a decision I can make unilaterally. Of course, we will maintain a diplomatic vessel in this system while you consider our proposal. However, I should warn you that our intelligence network suggests several major powers are mobilizing significant forces. You may not have as much time to decide as you would prefer. After the communication ended, Sarah found herself staring out at the alien stars, trying to process everything that had happened. In less than a day, they had gone from salvage operators to potentially the most important humans in the galaxy. "Keeper," she said finally, "your people faced a similar situation once, didn't they? They had to decide how to use their advanced technology." "Yes, and our choices led to stagnation and eventual decline. We became so focused on perfection and control that we lost the capacity for growth and adaptation. Perhaps your species can succeed where we failed." "No pressure," Sarah muttered. Elena had been quietly analyzing the diplomatic implications of their situation. "Sarah, regardless of what we decide about alliances, we need to get word back to Earth about what's happened here. The human government needs to know that we've made contact with potentially hostile alien civilizations." "Agreed. Jackson, can you plot a course back to human space?" "Already working on it, Captain. With this Keeper drive, we could be back in the solar system in under an hour." Sarah felt a moment of vertigo at the thought of travel times that rendered her entire understanding of galactic geography obsolete. Then she made another decision that would echo through history. "Do it! We're going home. It's time for humanity to learn what we've inherited." As the station prepared for another impossible jump across the galaxy, Sarah wondered if they were bringing salvation or destruction back to Earth. The only thing she knew for certain was that the universe would never be the same again. The jump back to Sol System was even more disorienting than their initial departure from the derelict station's original location. Sarah felt reality fold and unfold around them like cosmic origami, the familiar sensation of Keeper FTL technology bending space-time to their will. When the universe settled back into its proper configuration, Earth hung before them like a blue marble against the star-scattered darkness of space. "My God," Jackson breathed over the intercom. "We're home. We're actually home." But their homecoming was far from peaceful. The space around Earth was buzzing with activity as human defense fleets scrambled to intercept what their sensors must be reading as a massive alien installation appearing without warning in their home system. "This is Admiral Martinez of the Earth Defense Force," came a tense voice over the standard communication channels. "Unknown vessel, you are in violation of Earth space. Identify yourself immediately and prepare to be boarded." Man, Sarah felt a moment of bitter amusement. After facing down hegemony battle fleets and Altarian enforcement squadrons, being threatened by human military forces seemed almost quaint. "Admiral Martinez," she replied, "this is Captain Sarah Chen aboard the salvage vessel Lucky Strike. I'm transmitting our registration codes and emergency authorization signals now." There was a long pause, during which Sarah could imagine the chaos that must be erupting in the various command centers throughout the Sol system. A human salvage vessel should not be capable of arriving without transition signatures, should not be traveling in company with a station that dwarfed anything in human space. "Captain Chen," Admiral Martinez's voice was carefully controlled. "Our records show the Lucky Strike departed 3 months ago on a routine salvage operation in the Kepler sector. You are currently traveling in company with what appears to be an alien installation of unknown capabilities. Please explain." Sarah looked around at the bridge they had established in what used to be a Keeper command center, noting how the alien architecture had subtly adapted itself to human proportions and preferences. "Admiral, I'm afraid this is going to require a longer conversation than we can have over open channels. And you're going to want to involve some people with much higher security clearances than either of us probably have." "Understood. Stand by for escort to Luna Station. Do not attempt to approach Earth orbit until you have been cleared by security protocols." As the human defense fleet moved to surround them, Sarah felt the station's weapon systems automatically tracking the approaching vessels. She concentrated on dampening her emotional responses, not wanting to accidentally trigger a defensive reaction that could incinerate half the human fleet. Keeper, she said quietly, can you disable the automatic targeting systems? I don't want any accidents. The systems are not truly automatic, Keeper replied. They are responding to your subconscious threat assessment patterns. As long as you do not perceive the human vessels as hostile, the weapons will remain inactive. Elena looked up from her portable lab station, where she had been analyzing data continuously since their departure from the alien system. Sarah, we need to talk about what we're going to tell them, the implications of what we've discovered. It's going to change everything. I know. Sarah stared out at the approaching human vessels, sleep destroyers and cruisers that suddenly seemed pitifully primitive compared to the technology she now had access to. The question is, how much do we reveal and to whom? Marcus was monitoring the station's power systems, which continued to operate at levels that defied human understanding of physics. There's going to be no hiding what this thing is capable of. Every sensor in the system is probably going crazy trying to figure out how we're generating this much energy. The escort to Luna Station proceeded without incident, though Sarah could sense the growing excitement and concern among the human crews surrounding them. Luna Station itself was the largest human-built structure in space, a massive orbital facility that served as headquarters for both the Earth Defense Force and the Colonial Administration. As they approached the station's docking facilities, Sarah realized with some amusement that the Keeper installation was nearly 10 times larger than humanity's most impressive space station. This should be interesting, she muttered. The docking process required some creative engineering, as the Keeper station's design was completely incompatible with human docking systems. Fortunately, Keeper's technology was adaptive enough to extrude temporary docking tubes that interfaced with Luna Station's airlocks. Within an hour of their arrival, Sarah found herself sitting in a secure briefing room facing a collection of humanity's most powerful and influential individuals. Admiral Martinez was there, along with Director Patricia Voss of Colonial Intelligence, Secretary General Chen Wei of the United Nations Space Authority, and Dr. Richard Sterling, Earth's leading expert on xenoarchaeology. Captain Chen, Secretary General Chen Wei began, your preliminary report raises questions that go to the very heart of humanity's future in space. You're claiming to have made contact with technology left behind by the legendary Keeper civilization? Not just contact, Sarah replied, activating a small holographic projector that Keeper had configured for human use. Integration. Active cooperation with a Keeper artificial intelligence that has been waiting for our species for over 60,000 years. The hologram showed the battle with the hegemony fleet, demonstrating capabilities that made everyone in the room fall silent. Space-time manipulation, unlimited energy generation, faster-than-light travel that made human jump drives look like steam engines. My God, Dr. Sterling whispered. The theoretical implications alone. You're talking about technology that could revolutionize our understanding of physics itself. Director Voss leaned forward, her intelligence training making her focus on the strategic implications. You mentioned hostile contact with something called the hegemony and demands for surrender from an Altarian enforcement fleet. Are we looking at potential military threats to Earth? Sarah felt the weight of the moment settling on her shoulders. What she said next would shape humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations to come. Director, we're not just looking at potential threats. We're looking at an entire galactic civilization that views humanity as primitive and disposable. The Galactic Accords I mentioned essentially classify us as a pre-spaceflight species that has no rights to advanced technology. Admiral Martinez's expression darkened. Are you saying they plan to attack Earth? I'm saying they plan to prevent us from advancing beyond what they consider our proper technological level. If that requires destroying us, they seem perfectly willing to do so. The room erupted in concerned voices as the implications sank in. Secretary General Chen Wei raised a hand for silence. Captain, you also mentioned potential allies. The Zephyrian Republic? It seems there's a growing coalition of smaller civilizations that oppose the hegemonic control exercised by the major powers. They see our integration with Keeper technology as potentially game-changing. Dr. Sterling was studying the technical data Elena had compiled. The energy readings from your station are extraordinary. If we could replicate this technology, that's the problem, Sarah interrupted. It can't be replicated in the traditional sense. The integration requires specific genetic markers that exist in only about 12% of the human population. And even then, it requires a willingness to merge consciousness with alien intelligence systems. Director Voss sat back, processing the implications. So we're talking about a form of technology that can only be operated by a small percentage of our population, and which changes the operators in fundamental ways.
The changes aren't harmful,
Elena interjected. Sarah's psychological profile shows enhanced cognitive capabilities but no loss of essential personality or human identity. Enhanced how? Secretary General Chen Wei asked. Sarah considered how to explain the sensation of thinking with the processing power of an artificial intelligence that had existed for millions of years. It's like having access to a library that contains the accumulated knowledge of an entire civilization, but still being able to think and feel as a human being. I can perceive patterns and possibilities that were invisible before, but I'm still me. Admiral Martinez was studying the tactical implications. How many of these Keeper installations exist? 17 remain functional throughout the galaxy. If we could establish human crews on all of them, we could become a major galactic power overnight, the Admiral finished. Or we could become targets for every established civilization that benefits from the current power structure, Director Voss countered. As the discussion continued, Sarah found herself thinking about Amy, the 7-year-old girl whose toy bear had somehow become the key to unlocking the greatest technological advance in human history. There was a poetry to it that she suspected the Keepers had planned deliberately. There's something else you need to know, she said, interrupting the debate. The humans who were taken in the temporal anomalies of the early 21st century, they weren't victims. They were volunteers, or rather, they became volunteers once they understood what was at stake. She activated the hologram again, this time showing the records keeper had shared with her during their consciousness merge. Images of humans living and working alongside Keeper technology, exploring distant star systems, cataloging alien species, serving as the bridge between human consciousness and galactic civilization. They lived full lives, she continued. They established the protocols that allowed me to interface with Keeper technology safely. In a very real sense, they've been preparing the way for this moment for over 60 years. Dr. Sterling looked up from his analysis of the data. The genetic markers you mentioned, do we have any way of identifying individuals who possess them? Keeper can scan for them, but that raises ethical questions about genetic testing and selection that I'm not qualified to answer. Secretary General Chen Wei was quiet for several minutes, clearly wrestling with the implications of everything they had learned. Finally, he spoke. Captain Chen, Dr. Vasquez, Mr. Webb, what you brought us represents the most significant development in human history since the invention of language itself. The question is, what do we do with it? Admiral Martinez was receiving urgent communications from his command staff. Sir, came a voice over his communicator. We have multiple contacts dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. Unknown configurations, but they're big. Really big. Sarah felt her enhanced senses, still partially connected to the Keeper station, detecting the arriving vessels. They found us, she said grimly. Who found us? Director Voss demanded. The Altarian Enforcement Fleet, probably reinforced with hegemony vessels, and maybe others. They've decided that humanity represents too great a threat to ignore. Through the Keeper station's sensors, Sarah could perceive the approaching fleet in detail. 12 massive dreadnoughts, each one capable of sterilizing a planet. Their intent was unmistakable. They had come to end the human species' brief experiment with advanced technology. Admiral, she said urgently, you need to evacuate Luna Station and get word to Earth to activate every defense platform we have. Admiral Martinez was already issuing orders, his training taking over even as he struggled to process the magnitude of the threat. All civilians to evacuation pods. Defense fleet to combat formation. Activate planetary defense grid. It won't be enough, Sarah said bluntly. Human weapons can't touch ships that advanced. Secretary General Chen Wei looked at her intently. But Keeper technology can? Yes. But it will require me to interface with the station again. And this time the connection might be permanent. The strain of coordinating defenses for an entire star system. You're talking about sacrificing yourself to save Earth? Sarah looked around the briefing room at these leaders of humanity who were being forced to make impossible decisions. Then she thought about the children of Earth, the next generation who deserved a chance to grow up free rather than enslaved to alien overseers. I'm talking about doing what needs to be done. Sarah, there has to be another way. We don't even know if you can handle that level of integration. We're about to find out. Sarah stood up. Decision made. Keeper's been preparing for this moment for 60,000 years. So have we. We just didn't know it. As she headed for the docking tube that connected to the Keeper station, Sarah felt the weight of human history settling on her shoulders. Behind her, the leaders of Earth were frantically coordinating the evacuation of civilian populations and the deployment of military forces that they all knew would be pitifully inadequate. But Sarah had one advantage that the approaching alien fleet couldn't anticipate. She was human, with all the creativity, adaptability, and stubborn refusal to accept defeat that had carried her species from the caves of prehistory to the stars themselves, and she was about to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity's future hung in the balance. But as Sarah placed her hand once again on the Keeper interface node, she felt not fear, but determination. They had come this far against impossible odds. They weren't about to give up now. The small stuffed bear that had started it all sat nearby, still glowing faintly with residual energy from its contact with Keeper technology, a child's toy that had become humanity's key to the stars. Sarah smiled as the universe once again exploded into consciousness around her. Amy would have been proud. The second consciousness merge was both easier and more intense than the first. Sarah felt her awareness expand beyond the confines of her individual mind, encompassing the vast intelligence of the Keeper station, the sensor networks scattered throughout the Sol system, and the approaching alien fleet. But this time, she maintained her essential humanity, her connection to Earth, and her species serving as an anchor in the storm of cosmic consciousness. Through the station's enhanced sensors, she could perceive the Altarian fleet in perfect detail. 12 dreadnoughts, their hulls gleaming with energy shielding that could deflect anything in humanity's conventional arsenal. But more importantly, she could sense their intentions, their absolute certainty that they were about to eliminate a primitive species that had dared to access technology beyond their station. They were wrong about humanity being primitive. They were about to discover just how wrong. Sarah/Keeper reached out through space-time itself, her consciousness riding the quantum fluctuations that connected all matter and energy. The approaching fleet was still 3 hours from Earth at their current speed, but distance had become a fluid concept when dealing with Keeper technology. Her first move was subtle, almost playful. She reached into the fleet's communication networks and began broadcasting a message in their own languages, the translation flowing through her enhanced consciousness as naturally as breathing. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human species. You have entered Sol system with hostile intent against a peaceful civilization. You have one opportunity to withdraw before we demonstrate why the Keepers chose humanity as their inheritors. The response was predictably arrogant. The fleet commander, a member of the Altarian species whose rigid hierarchy had dominated galactic politics for millennia, replied with barely contained contempt. Primitive creature, you cannot comprehend the forces you have tampered with. Surrender the Keeper installation and submit to processing, and your species will be granted a quick extinction. Sarah felt anger flow through her connection to the station's systems. But this time she embraced it, channeling it into purpose. The human fleet around Luna Station numbered perhaps 30 vessels, destroyers and cruisers that were impressive by human standards, but insignificant compared to the approaching dreadnoughts. But they didn't need to be significant. They just needed to be in position. Sarah's consciousness reached out to each human vessel, interfacing with their computers, enhancing their sensors, upgrading their weapons systems with technology that transformed them from metal projectiles into coherent energy weapons that could manipulate matter at the subatomic level. She felt the surprise and wonder of the human crews as their ships suddenly became capable of things that violated everything they knew about physics. All human vessels, she broadcast, you are now equipped with Keeper-enhanced weapon systems. Target lock will be automatic. Fire on my command! Admiral Martinez's voice crackled over the communication channel, tight with stress but determined. Captain Chen, our crews aren't trained for this level of technology. They don't need to be, Sarah replied, her consciousness simultaneously monitoring system upgrades across the entire human fleet. The weapons are keyed to human neural patterns. Point and shoot, Admiral. The technology will handle the rest. The Altarian fleet had begun to accelerate, their contempt for human defensive capabilities evident in their attack formation. They were coming straight at Earth, not even bothering with tactical maneuvers. After all, what could a primitive species do to ships that had conquered hundreds of star systems? They were about to find out. Sarah waited until the enemy fleet was committed to their approach vector, too close to Earth to retreat without losing face. Then she struck. The first phase of her attack defied conventional military thinking. Instead of targeting the enemy ships directly, she reached out with the station's gravity manipulators and began rearranging the asteroids in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. Hundreds of rocky chunks, some as large as city blocks, suddenly found themselves accelerated to significant fractions of light speed and hurled directly at the approaching fleet. The Altarian ship's defensive systems activated automatically, vaporizing the incoming projectiles with energy beams that could have boiled oceans. But that was exactly what Sarah had hoped they would do. Each destroyed asteroid released clouds of metallic debris that expanded rapidly through the space the enemy fleet was traveling through. Phase 2, Sarah announced, and the human fleet opened fire. The enhanced weapons she had provided them didn't fire conventional projectiles. Instead, they unleashed focused streams of quantum energy that interacted with the metallic debris clouds in ways that transformed physics into art. The scattered metal became a conductor for forces that the Altarian shields had never been designed to handle, creating cascading energy feedback loops that turned the enemy's own defensive systems against them. 3 dreadnoughts simply ceased to exist, their matter scattered across several cubic kilometers of space. 4 more suffered critical system failures as their own energy shields became conduits for the quantum forces Sarah had unleashed. The remaining 5 ships finally began to take the human fleet seriously, breaking formation and maneuvering for combat. But Sarah wasn't finished demonstrating human creativity. Phase 3, she announced, and reached out through space-time to grab the local star itself. The sensation of touching a star through technological intermediaries was indescribable. Sarah felt the vast nuclear furnace that was Sol, the incredible energies that had warmed Earth for billions of years, the magnetic fields that could have contained entire planets, and she borrowed just a tiny fraction of that power. Solar flares erupted from the star's surface, guided by gravitational manipulators that Sarah controlled with thought alone. Streams of charged particles, normally harmless to shielded spacecraft, became weapons of impossible precision as they were focused and directed at the remaining enemy vessels. The Altarian fleet commander's voice crackled over the communication channels, no longer contemptuous but desperate. Impossible! No species should be able to weaponize stellar output. You're not fighting a species, Sarah replied, her consciousness riding the solar wind itself as it engulfed the enemy fleet. You're fighting the universe itself, guided by human determination. 2 more dreadnoughts succumbed to the stellar bombardment, their hulls superheated beyond the ability of their cooling systems to compensate. The remaining 3 ships were attempting to retreat, but Sarah had one more lesson to teach them. She reached out through the quantum foam that underlied all reality and simply relocated them. One moment they were fleeing toward the system's edge. The next they found themselves in Earth orbit, surrounded by human vessels and completely at Sarah's mercy. "You came here to destroy us," she said, her voice echoing through their ship's communication systems. "Instead, you're going to help us build something new." What she did next would be remembered as the moment humanity truly announced its arrival on the galactic stage. Instead of destroying the captured vessels, she began converting them, her consciousness interfacing with their computer systems, upgrading their technology, and offering their crews a choice. "You can return to your civilizations and report what you've seen here," she told them. "Or you can stay and help us create a new model for galactic civilization, one based on cooperation instead of domination." The others departed in one of the captured ships, carrying word of humanity's new capabilities back to their home systems. As the immediate crisis passed, Sarah felt her consciousness beginning to separate from the station's systems. But this time, the transition was gentler, more controlled. She had learned to modulate the connection, to maintain her human identity while accessing keeper capabilities. When she finally opened her eyes in the human-compatible section of the station, she found Elena, Marcus, and Jackson waiting for her, along with the human leadership who had witnessed the battle from Luna Station. "With trust, Teddy. Status report," she said, though part of her consciousness still maintained awareness of system-wide conditions. "Total victory," Admiral Martinez replied, his voice filled with awe. "Minimal casualties on our side, and we now have alien crews volunteering to help us upgrade our technology. Captain, what you just did, it changes everything." Secretary General Chen Wei stepped forward. "Captain Chen, on behalf of the human species, I want to thank you for what you've done. But I also need to ask, what happens now?" Sarah looked around at the faces surrounding her, these representatives of the species she had just committed to a completely new future. "Now we prove that we deserve the technology we've inherited. The galaxy is going to be watching us, testing us, trying to determine whether humanity will use Keeper technology to become conquerors like those we just defeated, or whether we'll use it to build something better." "Sarah, the energy signatures we just detected. Other Keeper installations throughout the galaxy are activating. It's like your actions here triggered some kind of galactic wake-up call." "The network is coming online," Keeper's voice confirmed through the station's speakers. "For millions of years, our installations have been dormant, waiting for a species worthy of inheriting our legacy. Your demonstration of both power and restraint has activated the revival protocols." Sterling looked up from his data analysis. "How many installations are we talking about?" 17 primary stations, 43 secondary facilities, and 112 minor outposts throughout the galaxy, all now awaiting human crews. The implications were staggering. Humanity could become the dominant technological force in the galaxy virtually overnight. But Sarah remembered the lessons of the Keeper civilization itself, how advancement without wisdom led to stagnation and decline. "We'll need to be careful," she said. "Power like this could change us in ways we don't anticipate. We need to maintain our humanity even as we expand our capabilities." Marcus had been studying the technical readouts from their upgraded human fleet. "Captain, the ships we enhanced during the battle, their crews are reporting that the technology feels natural, intuitive. It's like the Keeper systems are designed to integrate with human thinking patterns." "Because they were," Keeper confirmed. "Your predecessors, the humans taken in the early 21st century, spent decades helping us understand how human consciousness works. Every system on every installation has been optimized for human operators." Sarah felt a moment of profound gratitude toward Amy and the others, who had sacrificed their lives on Earth to prepare the way for this moment. Their courage had made humanity's emergence as a galactic power possible. "There's something else," Elena announced, studying new data streaming in from across the galaxy. "We're receiving communications from civilizations we've never heard of before. Species that have been hiding from the major powers, waiting for someone to challenge the existing order. Word of our victory is spreading fast. Director Voss was processing the intelligence implications. We're talking about potential allies throughout the galaxy? More than that, Sarah replied, her enhanced consciousness still partially connected to the galactic communication networks. We're talking about a complete reshaping of galactic civilization. The galactic accords that kept smaller species subjugated are about to become irrelevant. Secretary General Chen Wei was quiet for a long moment, clearly overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they were facing. Finally, he spoke. Captain Chen, I'm officially authorizing the formation of a new branch of human space operations, the Keeper Integration Corps. Your mission will be to establish human crews on the activated installations throughout the galaxy and to coordinate our relationships with potential alien allies. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders, but also a sense of excitement about the possibilities ahead. Understood, Mr. Secretary General. But I want to make one thing clear. We do this as partners with other species, not as conquerors. The moment we start thinking of ourselves as superior to everyone else is the moment we begin repeating the mistakes that destroyed the original Keeper civilization. As the meeting broke up and the various human leaders returned to their respective responsibilities, Sarah found herself alone with her crew and the Keeper AI that had become their guide and partner. So, Jackson said, grinning despite the magnitude of what they had just experienced, I guess we're not salvage operators anymore. Sarah looked out at the stars visible through the station's observation ports, knowing that among them waited installations that could extend human presence throughout the galaxy. But more importantly, she saw the potential for humanity to become something more than it had ever been before. A species that could wield incredible power while maintaining the compassion, creativity, and determination that made them human. No, she agreed, we're not salvage operators anymore. We're builders. We're going to help create a galaxy where species work together instead of dominating each other, where technology serves all sentient life instead of just the powerful. She picked up the small stuffed bear that had started their incredible journey, its fabric still glowing faintly with residual Keeper energy. Amy would have liked that, she said softly. Indeed she would have, Keeper agreed. She often spoke of her hope that your species would use our legacy to build something better than what came before. As the Keeper station began its journey to the first of the installations waiting throughout the galaxy, Sarah felt a sense of completion and new beginnings simultaneously. They had inherited the stars, but more importantly, they had inherited the responsibility to use that inheritance wisely. Behind them, Earth continued its ancient rotation, now protected by technology beyond imagination, but still home to the dreams, hopes, and determination that made humanity worthy of the greatest gift the universe had ever offered. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun, not through conquest, but through cooperation, not through domination, but through partnership. And at the heart of it all was the simple truth that sometimes the most profound discoveries came from the most unexpected places, like a child's stuffed toy, forgotten in the depths of space, waiting to unlock the secrets of the universe itself. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would humanity. But that, Sarah reflected as she watched alien stars wheel past the observation ports, was exactly the point.